Hey there, Icarus here. So I tried the demo for Berserker's Domain recently, and boy howdy does it live up to one of its own descriptors of being really f***ing stupid. And I use that term affectionately because it tells you everything you need to know about itself within the first few seconds of its introduction. You see, our protagonist here, the titular Berserker himself, just friggin' dies. That is entirely by virtue of his own idiocy. I mean, sure, he might have heard of the phrase "don't bring a knife to a gunfight," but because he's wielding an axe, he probably thought he was safe. That's the level of intelligence I'm imagining we're working on here. But regardless, there appears to be a place in the afterlife for people such as this, and that is an endless trial of combat and violence, and just what the heck is that? That's a crow with a Gatling gun? Yep, sure. In all honesty, there is a refreshing lack of pretense here in Berserker's Domain. It takes that familiar roguelike formula of progressive stages, randomized effects, hiccups, and what have you, and just says, screw it, we ball. Main objective in most of these stages here is pretty much kill everything. No need to key hunt, no need to switch flip. And when it comes to the issue of keeping yourself alive, well, the more you kill, the more health you replenish. So essentially, you're encouraged to become the human meat grinder you was always destined to be. I'll be honest, Berserker's Domain is very much playing to the crowd. And by that crowd, I mean anyone who's familiar with the classics, be it Doom, be it Blood, be it Quake. There's a whole host of things in here that will cause you to sit upright and do that whole Leonardo DiCaprio pointing at the TV meme. I mean, for one, Stefan Waite is all over this. I was like, Caleb? Is that you? What the hell are you doing here? I mean, kind of fits, what with the fact that your character can chuck bundles of dynamite and some of your enemies here sound astonishingly close to cultists. And then you look at some of the levels, the texture usage here, and I'm like, this is just Doom. This is just straight up Doom. This is about as close to the bone as you can get in terms of homage without triggering some kind of copyright infringement. I'm hoping that's the case. Anyway, in terms of how most runs here in Berserker Domain's demo begin, you'll be asked to select from 3 traits, which will essentially stick with you for the duration of the run. Some of them are relatively innocuous, such as traits that make you cackle maniacally for the entire time. Traits that inflate your damage numbers even though you're doing the same damage as before because you're delusional. But the more interesting ones, such as spending the entire round on mushrooms, also come with caveats that can either buff or debuff certain aspects of your run. For example, additional healing or reduced treasure discovery. After that, you're pretty much off to the races. Kill everything that moves, harvest the bright and sparklies that spill out of them on death, and cash it in between rounds in order to buff certain aspects of your run. These can include health and damage buffs, these can include extra attributes for your weapons, and something that interested me as part of that upgrade tree is the fact that if you upgrade certain weapons in tandem, there's a point on that upgrade tree where they both merge and form interesting combinations. Not something I had much time to play with during my time with the demo, but an interesting attribute to the system all the same. Beyond the upgrades, each successive stage completed will also present you with a choice, and this can present you with a whole host of different attributes. This could be access to certain potions, certain weapons, and on top of that, modifiers to the actual map itself, which could include increased enemy types, shrunken enemies, more effective enemies, or buffs in the opposite direction for yourself. Ultimately, what it all boils down to in the midst of the actual maps themselves is pure unbridled chaos, because it is, as I've already mentioned before, kill everything that moves, shoot barrels, create explosions, try not to die. And in all honesty, it occasionally reaches a point of sheer visual incoherence that a kind of berserker mania will descend on you yourself, just a flow state of violence, if you will. And that's accentuated by the fact that there's also some real smooth bunny hopping to be done in here. You don't really need to do it for any particular reason. I'm not sure it grants me any additional speed buffs or anything, but it was just nice enough to do that I was doing it out of sheer force of habit by the end of my time with this demo. Weapons are also things that'll be granted to you upon successive stage completion here, depending on your choices, of course. You can get yourself machine guns, you can get yourself rocket launchers, and on top of that, most weapons here will also feature a secondary that you can mess around with if you so choose. The shotgun, for example, features shotgun punching, which, very reminiscent of Ultra Kill. The SSG features a harpoon secondary, which can pull in enemies and barrels alike. Very reminiscent of Doom Eternal. The rocket launcher also features punching. It splits the projectile up into 3 smaller ones if you time it just right. And it also appears to be sentient, with a module that constantly spits out voice lines until you get sick enough of it that you punch it in order to make it shut up. Where's this bell? You can punch it again to make it talk, but, you know, that's entirely up to you. Enemy types are fairly rudimentary for the most part. You'll get enemies that straight up charge you. You got enemies that'll throw dynamite. You got enemies that'll try to shoot at you. You got more robust demon-esque enemies that'll chuck fireballs, giant floating eyeballs that fire projectiles, kind of like cacos. The guys that fire goop. There's of course the Gatling crows. Can't forget those. But by far the most difficult to deal with out of all enemies in this demo, what I'm calling the Shield Maidens. Any damage that hits these from the front on will just straight up bounce off that shield. Also, the sound effect is a little unpleasant. I think it's governed by how many projectiles hit at the same time, so the sound effect just stacks repeatedly. It gets a little harsh on the ears. Don't expect much smarts when it comes from enemy navigation here either. For the most part, they will generally wait until they're in direct line of sight to do any attacking, which means in some of the larger levels that can be generated here, because they're all randomly generated chunks that are kind of slammed together, you can occasionally find yourself wandering a bit before you run into a group that you need to actually dispatch. This is a bit of downtime that I feel that Berserker's Domain could do best to do away with where possible. But as a kind of recompense for that, if you spend too long in any given level, it'll start throwing in randomized effects to jazz up whatever's happening. This can be glitchy gravity, the floor can become lava, darkness can suddenly descend, and if you find yourself particularly lucky, you might just get the Tremendous Fortune random event, which just spawns an absolute crapload of treasure chests for you. But yeah, things just keep happening. That seems to be the guiding principle of Berserker's Domain. And really, the main bit of agency you have here is determining how much shit will continue to happen to you from one stage to the next. It is a choice worth considering seriously, because of course these choices will determine whether you get certain weapons or upgrades, but yes, also the quantity of enemies, the things that the enemies do, whether or not you'll get certain buffs in return, and of course some of these choices will railroad you into successive tracks. So yeah, you gotta try and give yourself the best possible start you can. I'm pretty sure I picked up something during one run that caused my character to periodically just spaff all over the place every now and again. It was just like this suspicious white liquid spurting out of my character continuously, and it certainly damages enemies. I, in all honesty, didn't want to have to think about it too hard, so I think I landed on my headcanon being he's carrying around a particularly leaky can of emulsion paint. Yeah. I'm gonna run with that. But at best, a lot of these comedic effects that can get applied during the course of a run reminded me somewhat of GZ Chaos. You can get enemies turning 2D, shrunk, that kind of business. It's not a bad comparison to have in my mind, to be perfectly honest. Anyways, after 5 continuous stages of this mayhem, you'll find yourself at basically the mid-boss for the run. This is the Jib Elemental. He's made out of meat. And in all honesty, he's not too much of trouble to deal with. Just make sure you don't get hit with the jibs. Make sure you avoid the lava, which will periodically rise throughout the course of the fight. Bob's your uncle, Fanny's your aunt. And you have successfully finished the demo for Berserker's Domain. But, once you're done marveling at the dance moves and the pile of corpses that you've stacked at the end screen, you can also choose to begin again and cash in some experience points that you've picked up along the way to improve the odds of your next run. This can include things such as larger map generation, increased headshot damage, explosive damage resistance. These are all permanent upgrades that you can carry forward into successive runs. So there's, at least a nice bit of permanent progression to it, which I always enjoy from this. The sense that even if you don't get the full way through, you can take the experience gained, improve your odds somewhat, and get a little bit further each time.
Power armor is for pussies.
So yeah, as far as FPS roguelites go, it's certainly shaping up to be one of the FPS roguelites of all time. It's not rocking the boat on that particular front, but hey, it wasn't boring, that's for sure. It was utterly manic at times, so obvious with its references and source inspirations that if it hit me over the head any harder with them, it'd probably give me a concussion. But the thing that certainly buoys it along is its sense of enthusiasm, its relentless forward momentum, its eagerness to just be silly, to just be stupid, and I want to show you a good time. I'd be interested to see if it manages to maintain this kind of forward momentum in the full release. That remains to be seen. But in the meantime, if you want to have a good time for free, you can do a whole lot worse than giving the Berserker's Domain demo a spin for yourself. Link to the Steam store page in the description below. If you've enjoyed this video, feel free to give me a like, comment, and maybe a subscribe. It's only polite. And if you really like what I'm doing here, feel free to throw me some coin via Patreon. Until next time, this has been Mr. Icarus. Thank you very much for watching. Icarus out.